Shall we begin? Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we're on the final section of the book then, the sixth chapter or the sixth event, قصة الردة بعد موت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The sixth event is regarding the apostasy that occurred after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The apostasy that occurred after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فمن سمعها لا يبقى في قلبه مثقال ذرة من شبهة أو من شبهة الشياطين الذين يسمون العلماء وهي قولهم هذا هو الشرك لكن يقولون لا إله إلا الله ومن قالها لا يكفر بشيء. This particular topic regarding the apostasy that occurred, as Shaykh al-Fawzan says, that there are scholars of misguidance, the misguided scholars, who say that the people who worship graves and they sacrifice at those graves and they make vows for the dead people in those graves, that all of these actions are not shirk. According to the scholars of misguidance, they say those kinds of actions are not shirk. And that's because they say ما دام أنه يقول لا إله إلا الله فهذه الأمور لا تضره. They say as long as a person says La ilaha illallah, then these kinds of actions do not have any impact. That's what they say. The scholars of misguidance. They say as long as you say La ilaha illallah, then going to the graves, sacrificing to the graves, vowing at the graves, all of these actions, they do not impact your Iman. They do not impact your status. You are a Muslim because you say La ilaha illallah. However, that is a concept that is incorrect. Just because a person testifies to La ilaha illallah does not mean that they are exempt from actions of shirk. They may say La ilaha illallah, but still perform actions of shirk and therefore be termed as mushrikeen. We gave an example yesterday. At the time of Ali radiallahu anhu, there were Muslims, as they said, saying La ilaha illallah, testifying to Tawheed. But when they began saying that Ali radiallahu anhu has some uluhiyah, some divinity in him, then all of the companions agreed that these individuals have apostated with that belief. Even though they were saying La ilaha illallah, they had apostated because of that belief of theirs. And there are many other examples of that throughout history as well, where there were Muslims, the Fatimiyun, for example, they used to say La ilaha illallah, and they used to do the adhan from their mosques, and they used to establish the prayers and the Jum'ah prayer. And yet the ulama of that time, of the Fatimiyun, declared them as disbelievers because they were rejecting certain aspects of the revelation. If you reject aspects of the revelation, that's kufr. Even if you say La ilaha illallah, even if you establish the adhan and the Jum'ah prayer, and all of those kinds of details are elaborated upon more in the book. Easy one from the same author, Kashf Shubuhat. Study Kashf Shubuhat carefully and in detail, and it will benefit you tremendously in your da'wah. in your da'wah to the people, to the commoners, if you understand kashf shubuhat, the removal of the doubts carefully, it will put you in a very strong position to clarify Tawheed and to advise the common folk and those who fall into the ways of the Sufis and Jama'atul Tabligh and the likes. So that's what these scholars of misguidance claim. كيف يقول لا إله إلا الله ويدعو غير الله إذا ما معنى لا إله إلا الله. Shaykh al-Fawzan says, but how can somebody say لا إله إلا الله but then still be worshipping or calling upon others besides Allah? That's a contradiction. Because La ilaha illallah means there is no deity worthy of worship in truth except Allah. So then how are you testifying to that but still calling upon and worshipping other deities besides Allah? That is a contradiction. Then Shaykh al-Fawzan says here, لا إله إلا الله ليست مجرد قول يقال باللسان. La ilaha illallah is not just a testimony that you say upon the tongue and that's it. بل لا بد أن يكون قولا ومعه عمل. Rather, it is a statement that must have action that goes with it. لأن لا إله إلا الله كلمة عظيمة لها معنى ولها مقتضى. Because La ilaha illallah is a tremendous statement. And it is a statement that has affairs that it necessitates. There are things necessitated by your statement of La ilaha illallah. What is that? What is necessitated? أن يخلص المرء العبادة لله وأن يترك عبادة غير الله. That a person then sincerely makes his worship to Allah alone and abandons and leaves off the worship of any others besides Allah. فالذي يقولها ولم يترك عبادة غير الله لا تنفعه كلمة لا إله إلا الله. So the one who says La ilaha illallah but does not leave and abandon the worship of others besides Allah, then saying La ilaha illallah does not benefit him. كما يقولون وربما يستدلون بالمتشابه من النصوص. And this is basically the way of which misguided group? Murji'ah. The Murji'ah, they are the ones who basically make a disconnect between Iman and actions. They make a disconnect between Iman and actions. And so they say, and they have different forms of them, but basically that Iman or that actions are not a part of Iman or from the definition of Iman. They delay actions from Iman. We know as Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Iman is statement and action, or in the modern day explanation of the scholars, belief of the heart and statements of the tongue and actions of the limbs. What is the evidence for that? Hands up. Who hasn't answered one yet? Go ahead.
One of them is a hadith where the Prophet said that the man has 77 branches, the highest of which in Allah, the lowest of which is moving something horrible from the road, and that the haya in the heart is from Iman. So the statement that Allah is a statement of the tongue, move something from the road is actually the limb, and the haya in the heart.
Okay. So you have that narration where the messenger said, Al-Iman bid'atun wa sab'una shu'bah. That it is, or sittuna shu'bah, 60 odd or 70 odd levels. أعلاها قول لا إله إلا الله. The highest of those levels of Iman is the statement of La ilaha illallah. وأدناها إماطة الأذى عن الطريق. And the lowest of them is the removal of some obstacle from the road. وَالْحَيَاءُ شُعْبَةٌ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ. And shyness is a branch of Iman. So removing an obstacle from the road, then that is a physical action, and that is termed as one of the branches of Iman. So physical actions are from Iman. Any other evidences that actions are from Iman?
We have the hadith من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده ولم يستطع فبلسانه
Okay.
ولم يستطع بقلبه وذلك
So this hadith about the one who sees an evil, من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذاك أضعف الإيمان. Whomsoever sees an evil, then change it with your hand physically. And that is only for the person who has authority and ability. So the ruler, for example, or the man of the house, for example. And if you're not able to do that, then change it with your tongue. Speak. Or with your pen. That comes under the same one. Writing. Clarifying. And if you're not able to do that, then change it or with your heart or hate it in your heart at least. And that is the weakest of Iman. How is this an evidence that actions are from Iman? Go.
Doing with authority includes the action of
Physical hand?
and hitting in the heart.
That's from the heart, actions of the heart, correct. So changing it with your hand is a physical action. That's a physical action, so that indicates actions are from Iman. Anybody else? Take what you want.
From the pillars of Islam, Salah. Salah is a physical action. Hajj is a physical action.
All right, but what's the evidence that those actions are part of Iman? They say these actions are not from Iman.
Leaving off the Salah will take you out of Iman. And denying those things.
All right, it's correct, but there's an ayah for it as well. Take what you want.
I was going to say sometimes Allah says in the Quran when He's mentioning some type of characteristics, He says Inna alladhina amanu, and He's mentioning Inna alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat, and He's mentioning that they believe and then do righteous actions after.
It could still be said by the Murji'ah that righteous actions okay, but they are not part of Iman though. We need some clear-cut evidences that actions are from Iman. That's similar to that. Two things are mentioned, but they're not directly connected. We need evidences that they are directly connected.
Like verses like in the Quran that connect Iman and action.
Such as?
من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم.
I suppose you could use that. وَهُوَ مُؤْمِن, and he is a believer, the one who does the righteous actions, and he is a believer. He is a mu'min. Maybe. There are some other clear ones. About the?
When Allah says, talks about Iman, He's talking about Salah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. There's an ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانَكُمْ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not let your Iman go to waste. And that ayah is talking about the story of when the Qibla direction changed. Previously, they used to pray towards Jerusalem. That was the Qibla direction. Then the ayat were revealed, highlighting that the Qibla direction has now changed towards the Kaaba, to Mecca. When that revelation came down, that the Qibla direction has changed, some of the scholars, they say it was at the time of Dhuhr prayer, and some say at the time of Asr prayer, when that revelation came to the messenger. And the messenger sent one of the companions to go to Masjid Quba to tell them, to let them know, let that congregation know, let that community know that the direction needs to be changed now to the Kaaba in Mecca. So when this man got to the mosque, and they say either it was Dhuhr or Asr, one of the two. When he got there, he actually got there exactly at the time of the prayer. They had already started. They were already praying. And so they were already praying in the Jerusalem, the old direction. They were praying in the old direction. So he got in and they were praying. He made the announcement, quoted to them the ayah, made the announcement that the Qibla direction has changed. And so in the prayer, when they heard that from him, the Imam moved and the whole Jama'ah moved the new direction in the middle of their prayer. So now, some of the companions then came to the messenger and they said to him, what about the companions who died before this ayah was revealed? Meaning those companions who died before it was revealed only ever prayed to the old direction. They never prayed to the new direction. What happens to their prayers? Are they still going to be rewarded on those prayers, or what's the ruling on their prayers? They died before the revelation came of the change of direction. So then the ayah was revealed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not put your Iman or let your Iman go to waste. What Iman will not go to waste?
The physical action of offering the salat towards that qibla.
Those prayers that those companions prayed in the old direction. So prayer, which is a physical action of worship, was named in the Quran as Iman, indicating your physical actions of worship are from Iman. Just whilst we're on the topic, what is the evidence that Iman increases and decreases? So this ayah in the Quran, that's one example. When the verses of Allah are recited upon them, their Iman increases. Clear ayah. That's something we already mentioned earlier tonight. The Battle of Uhud.
He said,
فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Their Iman increased when that message came to them from the kuffar, we're coming back for you. It says in the Quran, their Iman increased at that. Clear, Iman increased. And there are other ayat and verses as well. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he said to Allah, show me how you bring the dead back to life. And Allah said, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. Ibrahim said, of course I believe, but just for the sake of strengthening my itmi'nan, which in this ayah means Iman. To strengthen my Iman, if I can physically see how you bring the dead back to life, and then the story of the birds and how they will go back to life. So there are many ayat. Those are all talking about Iman increasing. And evidence that Iman decreases. No, that's just a statement. It's not a hadith.
The hadith where it was mentioned that like the person who fornicates, they are
Not a believer when they do that, which indicates that Iman has dropped. Okay, it's possible you can use that as an evidence. Anybody else?
Abandoning the righteous actions and committing sins.
Hadith. We need evidence. Ayah, hadith, evidences.
well, the hadith that I mentioned, he said, Shaykh Khalid al-Fili mentioned, he said in the hadith, ذلك أضعف إيمان, and that is for the weakest of Iman.
Same, you could use it. And if you cannot change it with your actions or tongue, then hate it in your heart. And that is the weakest of Iman, meaning that's at the bottom end of Iman. You've gone down. Al-Imam Malik said as well, all of the evidences that tell you Iman goes up are also evidences that Iman goes down, because anything that goes up comes down. So he said those are evidences. And there's another one regarding the women. When the messenger said, مَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْ نَاقِصَاتِ عَقْلٍ وَدِينٍ مِنْ إِحْدَاكُنَّ, that I have not seen from those deficient in intellect or religion than one of you, meaning the women. The deficiency in the intellect or what is intended by that is that when you have witnesses, you require 2 women witnesses. And as for in religion, they cannot pray when they are upon the monthly cycle, on the period, cannot pray, cannot fast. And when that happens, when they cannot pray, they cannot fast, they are naqisat. They are deficient in their religion, i.e. they are deficient in their Iman. So Iman increases and decreases. Actions are from Iman. That is the first principle of Ahlul Sunnah. Iman increases and decreases is the second principle of Ahlul Sunnah regarding Iman. And there's one more important third principle of Ahlul Sunnah regarding Iman. Istithna. Yeah, we're not going to actually open up the topic of istithna tonight. But yes, istithna, when you say insha'Allah, but that's another issue. There's one other third point though. That's correct, you're right, but we don't have time for that tonight. One more thing is that the third principle of Ahlul Sunnah regarding Iman,
sin does not negate, erase your Iman.
that's true. But as a principle, the third principle they mention is that the believers all differ in their level of Iman. Everybody has a different level of Iman. That's a principle of Ahlul Sunnah we believe in, because the people of Bid'ah, some of them they say everyone's Iman is same and equal. They say your Iman and my Iman is just the same as the Iman Abu Bakr as-Siddiq had. And your Iman and my Iman is the same as the Iman Jibreel has. Some of them say that, but we as Ahlul Sunnah, we say the principle is everybody is different in their levels of Iman. And there is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ had a dream. And in that dream, he saw people wearing these, what we call thobes. Some people, their thobes from the top, you got the collars and it just stopped there. That's it, cut off there, nothing else. The thobe only up to the chest. Some people, their thobe, put it on and it goes up to their waist. And in his dream, some people, their thobes up to their waist, up to their knees, up to their ankles. And Umar ibn al-Khattab was wearing a thobe so long, he was dragging it behind him as he was walking. So they said to the messenger, Ma awwalta dhalika ya Rasulullah. O Messenger of Allah, how did you interpret that dream? What does it mean? People with these different lengths of thobe. And Umar ibn al-Khattab with a thobe so long, he's dragging it behind him. The messenger said, Ad-Deen. Meaning in this hadith, Iman. This was a vision given to the messenger to indicate that people have different levels of Iman in accordance to the level of the length of their thobe in that dream. And so Umar ibn Khattab had a thobe so long he was dragging it behind him because of his Iman that he had. So this indicates, and that narration indicates, people have different levels of Iman. All of that discussion is here because the final section is about the apostasy that occurred at the end of after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the apostasy that occurred. And the point Shaykh Al-Fawzan is making here is that some people, they think as long as you say La ilaha illallah, you're a Muslim, you're upon Iman. Doesn't matter what you do, you say La ilaha illallah, you come to the mosque, you pray, you're a Muslim. It cannot be that you're a mushrik, it cannot be that you're a kafir. And that is incorrect. A person could be saying La ilaha illallah, but if he's walking out of the mosque and then doing tawaf around a grave and prostrating to the grave, committing major shirk, then you cannot say, but he says La ilaha illallah. The point of that is that La ilaha illallah should not be understood the way of the murji'ah. That as long as you say La ilaha illallah, you are safe no matter what you do. And that is incorrect. La ilaha illallah requires action. It requires that you fulfill its conditions. And if you oppose its conditions and you start committing acts of shirk, then simply saying La ilaha illallah and testifying to it is not enough. And this is from the way of the murji'ah, and they use several evidences for that. And we know that the issue with the murji'ah is because they have an imbalance. As Ahlul Sunnah, we balance all of our actions on three things, which is hope, fear, love. Those are the three affairs Ahlul Sunnah we balance everything upon. The love, our love for Allah, our Creator, our hope in Him, and our fear of Him. As Ibn al-Qayyim said, it is like a bird. The head of the bird is love, and the two wings are fear and hope. So if any one of those three parts is missing, then you are imbalanced. If you are doing your worship on fear and hope only, no love, then the head of the bird is missing, it cannot fly dead. If you have love and fear but no hope, then one wing is missing, the bird cannot fly. And if you have love and hope but no fear, The other wing is missing, the bird cannot fly. Ahlul Sunnah, we combine between all three. And what is the evidence for those three? Love, fear, and hope. What is the evidence that Ahlul Sunnah we combine between those affairs? Everybody in this room knows it. Everybody in this room knows the evidence. Al-Fatiha. How did you know that? Did I tell you that? Somebody else tell you that? Correct. Al-Fatiha is the evidence, because in Al-Fatiha you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. So when you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, all praise is to Allah, the Lord of everything in creation. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, talking about the names of Allah, the mercy of Allah, that gives you hope. Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner, the king, the one who disposes of the judgment and affairs on Yawmul Qiyamah, that gives you fear. So within those two you have the hope and the fear. And as for the love, the scholars, they say it comes into it when you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, He's the Lord of everything in existence, including you. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship and you alone we seek aid and assistance from. Now there's an indication of love behind those affairs. So you have fear and hope. The people of innovation went astray because they exaggerated on one of those three. Some of the people of innovation exaggerated on love. And they said, no, it's not about the hope or the fear of the fire. It's all love for Allah. And that is the Sufis. It is all about the love. The Jama'at al-Tabligh and the likes of them, love and spirituality, all about love. No, it's not about the fear or the hope. It's love. Then you have some individuals who exaggerate on fear. And they are the Khawarij. They take all of the texts that Allah talks about His punishments. Inna Allah shadidul iqab. He is the most severe in punishment. And they take all of those texts and they say, that's it. Look at these texts and how severe the punishment of Allah is for the one who commits the sins. And so they declare the murtakibul kabira, the one who commits a major sin in the hellfire or dies upon a major sin in the hellfire forever. And the other side, you have the ones who exaggerate on hope, and they are the Murji'ah. They say, no, look, the evidence says, they say, if you die upon the Shahada, you're saved. You die upon La ilaha illallah, you're saved. And they quote the hadith of Al-Bitaqah, the man who will come on the day of judgment with 99 scrolls of evil deeds. Kullu sijal madd al-basr. Every one of those scrolls, when you unravel it, as far as the eyesight can see. And he has 99 of them, full of evil deeds. And they are laid out. And then it is said to him, هَلْ لَكَ حَسَنًا? Do you have any good deed? And the man will say on Yawm al-Qiyamah, La ya Rabbi, no my Lord. But then it will be said to him, Bal laka indana hasana. It will be said to him, actually, you do have one good deed. وَلَا يُظْلَمُ أَحَدٌ. And nobody will be oppressed. You do actually have one good deed. And then this one scroll is brought forth. And in that one scroll it says, La ilaha illallah. So when the 99 are placed on one side of the scale and this one is placed on the other side, this one outweighs all of those others. And that is because the scholars say maybe he lived his whole life upon kufr and shirk and disobedience and haram, and that was his 99 scrolls. But then maybe right at the end of his life, the last thing that he did was La ilaha illallah, accepted the Shahada and died upon Islam. So he ended up with that one scroll of Tawheed, and that one scroll of Tawheed wipes out everything else. True, authentic narration. But the Murji'ah take it out of context. They say, well, there you go. All he had was La ilaha illallah. and with all of the sins on the other side, he was saved. So therefore, as long as you say La ilaha illallah, go commit whatever sins you want. That's what they say, and they misunderstand the narration, because the way of the people of innovation is they isolate evidences. This is important. The people of innovation use authentic evidences sometimes. Don't think that a mubtadi' comes along and tries to prove his bid'ah with fabricated narrations and weak narrations. No, sometimes they may come to you with authentic narrations, the people of bid'ah. But the problem is they isolate narrations. As Ahlul Sunnah, we know to understand the narrations, you have to understand them in the whole context. The people of bid'ah isolate a hadith or an ayah. And when you isolate a narration and look at it by itself, you can interpret it incorrectly. But when you put it in the context of all the other narrations, then you understand what it means. It's like the ayah when the people of innovation say, La tudrikuhu al-absar, wa huwa yudrikul absar. That the eyesights of the people cannot encompass Allah. This, when you look at the evidence isolated, seems to indicate that we can never see Allah. The ayah says the eyesights of the people, or the eyesights, cannot encompass the vision of Allah. So when you look at that ayah by itself, khalas, it means you cannot see Allah. When Musa alayhi salam asked to see Allah, and Allah said, Lan tarani, you will not see me. Khalas, when you look at that by itself, it indicates to you that we cannot see Allah. Even Musa alayhi salam couldn't see Allah. But they isolate those evidences. When you put them into the context of all the other evidences, then you realize that it's not what they are saying. The evidence of Musa is not what it means, because in the hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَن تَرَوْا رَبَّكُمْ حَتَّى تَمُوتُوا. You will not see your Lord until you die. So when you die in the afterlife, you will. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. On that day, faces will be glowing and bright, looking at their Lord. Some of the scholars said on that day, when the people see Allah, then the reaction of that will be that their faces begin to glow. Others, they said, before they see Allah, they will be made to have glowing faces in preparation to see Allah upon that beautiful state. Either way, the point is, إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. And if you look into the Arabic grammar as well, إِلَىٰ with نَاظِرَةٌ, nadara indicates reality, cannot be anything else. But there are multiple evidences. The point is, in context, you understand, isolated, it can mean different things. And that's what the people of innovation do. When they come to you with an authentic, as Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah said, when they come to you with an authentic evidence, a sahih narration or an ayah from the Quran to prove their bid'ah, then use which evidence against them? The same one. Because if they are trying to use an authentic evidence to prove a bid'ah, then they must be using that evidence incorrectly. Because an authentic evidence is never going to prove a bid'ah. So they must be using it wrong somehow, misinterpreting it somehow. It can never be that an authentic evidence proves a bid'ah. So Shaykh al-Islam said, think about the evidence and give it to them with the correct interpretation, which will then become a refutation of their bid'ah. Like the ayah, eyesight cannot encompass Allah. You can use the same ayah to prove to them, this means we can see Allah. How? Anybody? Hands up.
Meaning that you cannot fully encompass Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And so meaning what though?
That you will still see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not fully encompass.
But how do we know? Okay, I understand what you're saying. Is yeah.
Then
No, لا تدركه الأبصار. The eyesight cannot encompass Allah. They say this is a proof you cannot see Allah. How is it a proof you can see Allah?
Shaykh Khalid al-Fayri mentions in his explanation of Ha'iyya ibn Abi Dawood that this is the proof that you can't see Allah, because anything that is negated for Allah is an affirmation of the perfect opposite. So the fact that you will not encompass him with eyesight is an affirmation that you will see him without encompassing him.
Mhm.
Khalid al-Fayri mentioned.
The principle is used upon names and attributes generally. It's a principle that if you negate something from Allah, it is not for the sake of absolute negation, it is for the sake of proving the opposite perfection. But here, an easy way to explain it, Anwar.
The eyesight cannot encompass Allah, which means not with the eyesight, but you were deceiving a different man without the physical.
At the back?
Is it similar to the example of the eyesight cannot fully encompass all of the ocean? But it doesn't.
Sort of. The easy way to explain is, go on, one last, go on.
I was going to say, referring to how we will not be able to encompass Allah except in the next life.
The easy way to explain this one, that the eyesight cannot encompass Allah. In order for you to encompass something in the first place, you have to be able to see it. Because if you cannot see something in the first place, then obviously you cannot encompass it. So the fact that Allah negates the encompassment, you will not be able to encompass Allah, proves that you are initially going to be able to see Allah. Because if you were initially not going to be able to see Allah anyway, then obviously we're not going to be able to encompass it. Then what would be the point of Allah telling us that? If we're not going to be able to see Allah anyway, then obviously we're not going to be able to encompass. So the fact that Allah tells us you will not be able to encompass proves that initially Allah will allow us to see Him, but we will not be able to encompass the vision. And the example is like ocean or whatever, the sun. You can say the sun, we can all look at the sun, put your shades on, look at the sun. But can you encompass the reality of the sun as an example? Looking at the sun, can you tell me right now what degree temperature it is? Looking at the sun right now, can you tell me how big it is, how heavy it is? You don't know any of those things just looking at it. You can see it, but you don't know the details of the mass, the weight, the diameter, the heat. Those details you don't know. So you see it, but you cannot encompass it. That's the point. So here in this final section, we're kind of digressing again, but the point was here regarding La ilaha illallah. He mentions a lot of things here. He goes on talking about the story of those who apostated after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. والذي يبين ذلك من قصة الردة أن المرتدين افترقوا في ردتهم. The ones who apostated after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were different types of apostasy. Some of them apostated, منهم من كذب النبي ورجعوا إلى عبادة الأوثان. There were some after the death of the messenger who just rejected the messenger, went back to worshiping idols. And this is not going to be the companions. Remember, there were many Muslims at the time of the Prophet who were not companions. At the time of the Prophet, there used to be people who became Muslim in tribes from outside of Medina. They were not all companions. So some of these tribes out there, after the death of the messenger, they apostated and went back to worshipping idols. And they said, لو كان نبيا ما مات. They said, if he was really a prophet, he wouldn't have died. If he was really a prophet, he wouldn't have died, they said, at that time. And they apostated because of that. And we know Allah tells us in the Quran, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ, that you will certainly die. You are those who faces death as they face death. You will die, certainly. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ ثَبَتَ عَلَى الشَّهَادَةِ وَلَكِنْ أَقَرَّ بِنُبُوَّةِ مُسَيْلَمَةٍ. There were others who apostated because they believed there was another prophet after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Musaylama, for example. And there wasn't just Musaylama, there were many. There were many individuals who claimed prophethood. Some of them even during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There were people who claimed they were prophets during the lifetime of the messenger. Some of them even used to bring witnesses that they witnessed to my prophethood. And Musaylama was one of them. Musaylama al-Kadhab, as he is known as, that liar. So dhannan, and some of them used to come with witnesses. Those witnesses used to say, we testify, we heard the messenger say to us that he is a prophet as well. They would come saying, we testify, we heard the messenger declare his prophethood. We heard it, we were there. That's how they used to bring this false testimony to try and say they are prophets. And some of them actually repented and became Muslim afterwards. Some of those individuals who claimed prophethood, they repented and became Muslim afterwards. Don't know if he mentions it here, but there were a few of them. So Musaylama was one of them, and the battles they occurred, and especially when the battle occurred with Musaylama, when the companions, they went to fight against Musaylama, those claiming prophethood, etc. Many of the companions were killed in that battle. And many of the ones who were killed were the memorizers of the Quran. Because not all the companions were hufaz, but some of them were. And from the ones who were hafiz of the Quran, many of them got killed in that battle against Musaylama. So much so, and this was at the time when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was the Khalifa now, so much so that Umar ibn al-Khattab got worried. And he came to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and he said to him, Abu Bakr was the Khalifa now, Umar said to him that, look, many of the huffaz, the memorizers of the Quran, they are getting killed in the battle. And I fear that if they all get killed, we may have a problem in the preservation of the Quran and keeping it all together. I fear if all of these memorizers get killed, you need to, Umar said to Abu Bakr, you should compile it all together in papers, written down. So even if those who have memorized it die, we have a written copy. Because before that, at the time of the messenger, how did they have the Quran? Different companions had different sections written down on paper, on cloth, on different parchments. They had different sections. In fact, when the Quran was being revealed, there were some companions known as the Kuttabul Wahy, the writers of the revelation. And I think there were 40 of them or so, 40, 45 writers of the revelation. Whenever revelation came, the messenger would call for them. Maybe 5 of them would come, maybe 10 of them would come. They were specialist writers and they would write down the new sections the messenger had got from Jibreel. So they would write them. And the next ayah, when it came, he would call them again. Another 5 or 10 of them would come. They would write it down. But not a single one of them had the entire Quran written down. There were 10, 20, 30, 40 of them, writers of the Quran, and each of them used to write whatever section at that time when it was revealed. So companions had sections of the Quran written down in different places. Umar came to Abu Bakr and said, you need to gather it all. All of those companions get their pieces, put them all together so we have one copy. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq initially wasn't too sure. They had a discussion and they agreed on it. So then they said, who shall we give this task to? And so they called Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd ibn Thabit initially was very reluctant. He said, how do you want me to do something that the messenger never did himself? The messenger never told all of us to get our pieces together into one. How are you going to make me do something the messenger never did? But then after the discussions with Abu Bakr and Umar, etc., they all understood that this is not a bid'ah, it's not nothing like that. It's okay, put it all together. So Zayd ibn Thabit, along with a few others, they were given the task of going around to all the companions, getting all the pieces together. And they would only go to the companions who had heard the Quran directly from the messenger. Because there were many companions who had heard sections via other companions. They didn't go to them. No secondary sources. Only the primary sources. They went to them, gathered it all, so then they had a copy. That first copy that was put together then stayed in the house of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. That is known as the Mus'haf of Abu Bakr. Then time went by, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu passed away, and it got to the time of Umar ibn Khattab. and the time of Uthman ibn Affan. When it got to the time of Uthman ibn Affan, you know the Quran has the different recitations, Hafs, and the different recitations like Libyans and Arabs from that area. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin, not Maliki Yawmiddin. These kinds of differences in recitation, they exist. They existed in those times. The differences in recitation of words. Same Quran, of course, but the differences in recitation existed. And people began differing over that. They began arguing over that. This is the right pronunciation. And they say, no, this is the right pronunciation. And they began arguing over those issues of which way to recite the Quran accurately. And so Uthman ibn Affan, long story short, he decided to compile all the Quran again, but this time collecting it all upon one style of recitation only, which is the Hafs. These mushafs that you have now, they call them the Mushaf of Uthman. These are known as the Uthmani Mushaf. This is the one that Uthman collected. He gathered it all upon the recitation of Hafs. And he made 6 copies. 6 copies of the Quran were made. One was sent to like Palestine, Iraq, that kind of area. One was sent to Mecca. One was sent to Baghdad, I think. 6 places. Or 5 places. He sent the 5 major centers of Islam at the time. They were all sent a copy, and the 6th copy Uthman kept in his house. That is about the compilation of the Quran, how it first occurred. How did we even get to that? But the compilation of the Quran, that's how it occurred initially. That's where it was all put together initially. Here we were talking about Musaylama. Yes, Musaylama, when the memorizers of the Quran were being killed. And that's how they first compiled the Quran at the time of Abu Bakr. And then again it was compiled at the time of Uthman. So here, ظَنًّا أَنَّ النَّبِيَّ صلى الله عليه وسلم أشركه في النبوة لأن مسيلمة أقام شهود. So Musaylama had brought along witnesses, and people, they began to believe that they were prophet again after the messenger, and they apostated. And so the companions, they fought against them, fought against those apostates. And we know Abu Bakr as-Siddiq fought against the ones who were preventing or refusing to give zakat. And so this highlights that the religion is not simply a case of that I say La ilaha illallah and I'm done. After that, I can do whatever I want to do. Go drink alcohol, go do this, go do that, do whatever sins you want. But I say La ilaha illallah and I come pray Jumu'ah every week. That is not Islam. That is not the way to understand it. A person upon the Shahada needs to implement the Shahada and fully abide by what the Shahada necessitates. And these individuals, many of them after the death of the messenger, they did not abide by what the Shahada necessitates. And they broke away from that, and they went into false aqeedah and deviances. And so the companions, they fought against them. And this is to refute the way of the Murji'ah, to refute those misguided positions that actions are not from Iman, and that as long as you say La ilaha illallah, you're okay. So it's important to study books like Kitab At-Tawheed that break it all down. Every type of or affairs of Aqidah, of Tawheed, and the types of shirk, all of it broken down. Kitab At-Tawheed is not a book you can ever underestimate. Learn that book carefully, chapter by chapter, and you will be upon a great deal of benefit and understanding regarding your religion, regarding Tawheed, and regarding shirk. That in summary, we've kind of moved along quickly towards the end, but that in summary gives you an idea of what this book is about, the 6 events from the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that in summary is where we'll conclude our reading from that particular book. Usually if we do it, it would be maybe like 8 sessions. Here we've kind of summarized it into about 4 or 5 sessions, but at least it gives you a general idea and an understanding. As they say, it gives you the key to open up the door. You have the key to open up the door now to understand this book and to understand basics of Tawheed and Shirk, to understand some of these stories that occurred at the time of the Messenger and how they highlight those aspects of Tawheed and Shirk. And that is what the books of Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab are all about. Kashf al-Shubuhat, explaining the doubts of the mushrikeen and refuting them with the evidences. Kitab al-Tawheed, chapter by chapter, telling you all the types of Tawheed, all the types of shirk, minor shirk, the Tawheed and the perfection of Tawheed. Al-Qawa'id, 4 fundamental principles again in Tawheed and shirk. The Al-Usul Sitta, 6 foundations in Islam of unity of the scholars of knowledge. These are basic books. All of us should focus on getting through these books, going through the knowledge of these books. This gives you the foundations of your religion, the basics. And as we know, it is an obligation to have knowledge to what level? The minimum level of knowledge everybody must have is the amount that enables you to fulfill the practice of your religion, the worship of Allah. So everybody needs to know how to make wudu, for example. Everybody, obligation, because if you do not, how are you going to pray your 5 prayers every day? Everybody needs to know how to pray, otherwise how are you going to pray? Minimum levels of knowledge. Everybody needs to know Tawheed and Shirk at the basic level, otherwise you fall into Shirk and aspects of polytheism. It's very important. And we spoke about knowledge. Did we speak about knowledge in one of the lectures here in Chicago or not? In the first one. We talked about knowledge in the first one. In the first lecture. Yes, Mr. Sunnah. In that lecture, we talked about knowledge and the virtues of knowledge. So it's very important you give focus to this. You give focus to learning, focus to putting your minds to that which benefits. احرص على ما ينفعك. Focus and strive on that which benefits you. What will benefit you in this world, what will benefit you in the afterlife. And do not let the shaitan take you away into whispers of futile, useless things, bickering or backbiting or qila wa qal and rumors and gossip. Do not allow your time to be wasted like that, as many of the youth they do, gossiping and talking about this and that, and there is no benefit in it. احرص على ما ينفعك. Strive for that which will benefit you in this dunya and in the afterlife. And there is nothing greater than knowledge. Knowledge that you learn that benefits you in your religion and puts you in a better position to worship Allah and differentiates in your levels in the afterlife. That knowledge is vital, and we cannot miss the gatherings of knowledge. You have regular gatherings of knowledge going on in these mosques in Chicago, here in the north. You must make sure you're attending those gatherings of knowledge regularly. These kinds of events, as Shaykh Ubaid al-Jabiri used to say, these kinds of events are Iman boosters. So after this week now, many people will probably experience a bit of an Iman booster after this event and these sessions and all these things. They are for Iman boosters. But the reality of knowledge is step by step, week by week. That is the reality of knowledge. Shaykh Ubaid used to say, you don't gain knowledge just from conferences. Conferences are Iman boosters and a general type of knowledge, listen to some lectures. But the reality of learning the principles and foundations is week in, week out knowledge. Weekly basis, attending the gatherings, learning, studying, memorizing. And it's important as Salafis, as Ahlul Sunnah, that we are leading the way in that. You do not want to be that a person of innovation, a tablighi, an ikhwani, a takfiri, a khariji, comes to you in the street and he refutes you into the middle of next week, as they say. You do not want to be in that state. As Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab said, if a person walks around without knowledge, it is as though he is walking around without any armor to protect yourself, without a shield. Without a shield, you have no armor, anybody can shoot at you and you're an open target. You need armor to protect yourself. What is the armor? Knowledge. Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab said that knowledge is your defense against the mubtadi'ah, against the mushrikeen, against anybody. So you do not want to be walking around defenseless. And not just for that reason, but for the reason of removing jahl from yourselves, from your families. This is the objective of seeking knowledge. To remove ignorance from yourself, ignorance from your families. And then to remove ignorance from others. to pull those people off the streets, just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon many of us that we were on the streets and we had nothing, and Allah took us out from that darkness into light. And perhaps there were people who we remember 15, 20, 30 years ago, maybe they were the cause by the decree of Allah from that little bit of knowledge they gave us, and it opened up our hearts and we came to Islam. So now you are those people with the responsibility. Learn the religion and help the community, help the people, help the Muslims who are out there on the streets not practicing their religion. It is important as Ahlul Sunnah, as Salafis, that we are at the forefront of that. Not the people of innovation going along and dragging everybody to their innovations and to their mosques and upon deviance. So strive upon that with sincerity, asking Allah for sincerity, ikhlas in your actions, asking Allah for unity and brotherhood, because the worst thing that deprives or hinders the da'wah is when there's disunity between Ahlul Sunnah. When there is disunity between Ahlul Sunnah, that is the greatest thing that hinders the da'wah. Stops the progress of the da'wah, because this one's got a problem there, he's got a problem here, and it's Ahlul Sunnah. So get rid of the means to any discord, get rid of the means to any differences, and recognize for the sake of Allah, we are Ahlul Sunnah, Salafiyun, Sunnis, upon that Sunnah of the Messenger, upon As-Sirat al-Mustaqim, inshaAllah, and that we are united upon that, calling to that, and that is our da'wah. That is what the scholars have taught us, and that is what we need to strive for. So upon that point, perhaps I'll conclude, and this will be the final lecture, then I leave tomorrow, inshaAllah ta'ala. And I thank everybody who has participated, and especially all of the organizers, the imams, the idara, the committees, the admins of the mosques, all these mosques here in Chicago, as well as all the other mosques that I went to in other places in the Marakis. I thank everybody for their participation. May Allah reward you greatly for these events. It's not only the speakers. Everybody, they who spoke and things like that. It is not just organized by the speaker. It is not the speaker who puts together the program and organizes. It is the people on the ground who do all of that. It is the admins at the mosques who do all of that. It is the brothers who are enthusiastic with the da'wah and they want good for the people, and they organize these events and they put together this da'wah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward everybody for what they have done here, and may it be a means of benefit for all of us, and that we take something good from these days, and inshaAllah ta'ala that we remain as brothers up until death comes. Jazakumullahu khair. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.